Before we start, I don't know if you have noticed, but the melody in the introduction has changed. As one of you rightly pointed out, it was out of tune, so I fixed it and I've played it and recorded it again. It was down one step, I believe, drop D. Well, it doesn't matter, I think it sounds better now. Another aspect, I am dividing this video into two parts. I'll start with what the season is all about and the historical background, and at the end I have a long message for you for this season. Well, with no more delay, let's get started. Hello friends, my name is Archaeology and today I'm going to talk about Samhain. I'll not deny it, this is my favorite time of the year, so I'll have loads of information to share with you. October is coming to an end and we are near Halloween, or All Saints' Day, a very traditional Christian celebration for thousands of generations. But is it really a celebration from the Christian holidays calendar or an adaptation from a very ancient past before the Christianization of Europe? Well, in truth, Halloween comes from the harvest festivals held by this time of the year by many European cultures since immemorial times. We know about the Celtic festival, the Harvest Festival, given the recent Gaelic name of Samhain, a day that marks the end of summer, a day connected to the harvest and also to the dead and the ancestors, and the Celtic New Year, the eve of the 1st of November when the Celtic winter begins. The 1st of November for the Celts was the beginning of the year itself, and the feast of Samhain was their New Year's Eve. This was the day between the end of a season and the beginning of another, so in other words, a time which belonged to neither season, a sort of mysterious time which belonged to neither the past nor the present. Samhain, like other pagan festivals, was so deeply rooted in popular tradition that Christianity had to try to take it over. The aspects of communion with the dead and with other spirits was Christianized as All Hallows, moved from its original date from the 13th of May to the 1st of November, and extended to the whole church by Pope Gregory III or the IV. Historical sources vary, but what they have in common is that this was done by the Pope in the year of 834. People wouldn't complain that much now, since they would still celebrate the old pagan holiday, but in a different manner and turn to the new faith. Even with such a new faith introduced, this day never lost its former essence, and much of the popular imagination and superstition from the earlier period of the celebration is still associated to the full pagan festival and came to our modern days because some people, including churchmen, preserved some of the cults of the ancient era. Much of the superstitions were around the dead, but by this time the harvest celebrations also took place, bonfires, the coming of autumn, and the natural world changing. Metaphorically speaking, this was the beginning of the very death of nature, the magical passage into winter, when the days grow darker and the skies at dusk are painted with the colors of fire and the very land takes this form. All of this was thought to be held most prominently during the evening before All Hallows, from where the modern name Halloween or All Hallows Evening comes from. The term itself originated in Scotland. By the passing of time and with the coming of the Christian faith and all the tales from the old pagan past that were told to people to scare them and never think about the pagan beliefs again, new customs evolved that had little or nothing to do with both the pagan celebrations and the Christian All Saints' Day, or later called All Souls' Day, on November the 2nd. Some people burned candles to drive away malevolent spirits of the dead on the eve of All Hallows, spirits that would enter the world of the living at this very night. The custom of adults and children disguising themselves to trick the spirits or the living and beg for coins or food, it's the origin of trick-or-treating. However, to the Celts it was true that they believed that a gap between this world and the next could be indeed open, and the spirits of the dead, other beings, and even the gods would come to the mortal world. Some people held the celebrations for the dead, hoping that they could have any contact with their ancestors. Others would disguise themselves with masks because they feared that in this day the spirits of the gods would come and take them to the next world, since this was the day that the deities and their helpers came to collect souls. All over Europe before Christianization, people rejoiced at this day because they knew that this was the day that they would be so close to their ancestors. In Northern Europe, for instance, there were a couple of celebrations to honor the ancestors during winter, such as the Disir, honoring the female ancestors and the female deities, and the Alfablot, to honor the spirits of the land to thank them for the help they gave in harvesting during the year. This was also the time when strangers to the families living in each farm couldn't come near, because it was time for very private celebrations for each family when they could join with their deceased and feast with them near their burial mounds at the farm. There was the myth all over Europe that this was also the time of the wild hunt, and each culture has its tales of the gods, the spirits of the ancestors and spirits of animals running across the sky searching for souls to take away those who were dying, or to take people at random if the gods thought that their time had come, or to take brave heroes worthy to be in the presence of the gods. But let's take a look at the essence of this season. The lives of our ancestors depended too much on the cycles of nature, and they didn't have the resources we have nowadays. So keeping whole herds fed through the winter was impossible, so the minimum breeding stock was kept alive. There were many mouths to feed in a season that completely destroys that which gives sustenance to animal herds. So many animals were slaughtered during this time and the meat salted to preserve it. Salt was very important to preserve meat and had it to store food for winter. Not everyone had an easy access to salt, especially societies so far from the sea. Mining salt was hard business, so salt became a very important and expensive substance. And everything that is either new, rare, hard to get gains a tremendous importance. Hence, without a doubt, the reason why salt was also used in traditional magical rituals, due to being a rare substance in those times. And people even killed for it. It might seem silly and a reason to laugh about, because nowadays we have salt in great quantities and so easy to get, but people kill for what is rare and for what we give a certain amount of importance. Which is why nowadays we kill for oil. And maybe the future generations will laugh about it, but they will kill for something else, new, rare and important. Right, such a cheerful assessment. Well, the crops too had to be gathered in by the 31st of October, and anything still unharvested was abandoned. There was even a folk belief that during Samhain night, a creature called the puka contaminated and destroyed whatever remained unreaped. Maybe a folk explanation to show that the coming winter really affected any edible plant and fruit, leaving those sources of food unfit for consumption, which might lead to health problems. Anyway, the puka is one of those Samhain night creatures who delighted in tormenting humans. An ex-girlfriend of mine had this nickname, Puka. This explains a lot. During Samhain night, there would be a great feast, much of the food provided coming from the newly slaughtered cattle, of course. The Celts used entrails and other animal parts for divinatory purposes, and what they did not use provided a feast for the tribe, purifying the meat in the Samhain fires, and it became a sort of ritualistic food. As I've said, this was the time of the year when the cattle could no longer graze on the green pastures. Summer was waning. Note that autumn wasn't known to be a season, and there was only spring, summer and winter. And well, farm animals were slaughtered and the surpluses of the harvest were stored for the coming of winter. Storing food for winter was the key to survive. Nowadays we do not give much importance to that, and that is why part of the spirit of this season was forgotten. Well, speaking of the spirit of this season, everyone knows that all the monsters come out during this night. Most of these supernatural elements in this celebration have a wicked and an evil aspect due to the condemnation by the medieval church. To put on a costume was another part of the festival and involved people going door to door in disguise to recite verses in exchange for food. Halloween trick-or-treating recalls this tradition. These monsters were just mortals in disguise. However, most of these spiritual beings may be remnants of older pagan deities and spirits of nature. People used to leave offerings of food and drink out in the fields for them. This, of course, was because people wanted to maintain the bonds of friendship with the spirits and the gods and avoid all kinds of mischief from them. Also, it was a way to ensure that the spirits of nature were appeased and winter wouldn't be so harsh on mortals. If the spirits of nature and deities can contact us and come through the thin veil, so do the dead as well, for they also belong to the otherworldly activities. People held feasts and invited their deceased ancestors to attend those same feasts. This was in fact the true reason this celebration was held, with roots in our prehistoric past. As you might know, agriculture is as recent as 5,000 years ago. In some countries, of course, the furthest away from the Middle East, the earlier to our era it gets. There are archaeological evidences that this celebration was held before the invention of agriculture. In ancient times, Samhain in the beginning wasn't the celebration of a season and the ending of the harvest, because there wasn't any harvest to be celebrated. The colony calendar, a Celtic timekeeping plague found in France and probably dating to the late 2nd century of our era, with Celtic words but written in Roman alphabet, is assumed to reflect a far older indigenous tradition of this celebration. The year, as with the Gaelic Celtic year, was divided into two, with the division from summer to winter occurring at Samonius, which may have given rise to the word Samhain. It seems there was a 3-night festival at this time. Iron Age people recorded time by nights, not days. And what people did during these 3 nights of Samhain is hard to discern from the archaeological evidences. During the Bronze Age, and possibly long before, people observed the movement of the stars, and an embossed disc from Niebuhr in Germany seems to reflect the celestial skies at the start of winter. The disc shows the moon and a star constellation that looks very similar to the Pleiades. Given its prominence, the Pleiades certainly add considerable meaning to the people using this disc. It's interesting to notice that in Western astrology, the Pleiades are associated with mourning the dead. And like all stars, the Pleiades shifted its position over the years, and during the Iron Age, the Pleiades rose to its apex in the winter skies during the 3 nights of Samhain. Iron Age people mourned and remembered their dead at this time. Then it may have given rise to the association between the Pleiades and mourning the dead. The Niebuhr disc shows the importance of the constellation to prehistoric people, and it may have even been the marker people sought to begin their festivities. There is even folk traditions that Druids celebrated Samhain when the Pleiades were at their apex at midnight, so mourning and remembering the dead may have been the focus of the Samhain festival during the Iron Age. Unfortunately, Halloween forgot all about honoring the ancestors, and we seem to enjoy more what it has become. However, during the 9th century, the Roman Catholic Church changed their All Saints' Day to the 1st of November, as I've said. It became the day for remembering the dead, remembering the ancestors. It might seem strange to you to notice that the Church, who so fervently fought against pagans in order to make the people forget and forsake their ancestral traditions and impose and implement their beliefs, kept this element of Samhain. In truth, it was a very cunning marketing weapon to collect more worshippers of the new faith into their flock. The Church knew it was a very important celebration, and it would be very hard to lead them astray from their important and ancestral celebrations so deeply rooted in their hearts. So the Church just included it in the new faith, and both parties were happy with it. Recognizing and adopting Samhain as a Christian celebration was a way to appease the mood of the pagans and turn them into allies. Now, aside with the historical background, I would like to give you a very long message for this season. I think it's important, and I do not often do that. You are part of this community I'm creating here, so I would like to share this message with you. Nowadays, this particular festivity is probably one of the most celebrated dates in our modern culture. It seems to be admired, immortalized, and approved each year, and its popularity is considerably growing across the Western world. I dare say, all over the globe. In modern times, it is the beginning of a holiday season and the opportunity to go out at night, dressed in a notably weird costume and as if it were a ritual going around the neighborhood playing trick or treat. Children do love this, and so do their parents, for it is an opportunity to be part of the community in a cheerful way, and it's an escape from the average daily life. It's party for everyone. The decorations are also part of this celebration to enhance the atmosphere, and nature of course does its part and bring the cold, rain, mists and very vibrant colors. It seems a little excessive the lack of moderation when eating treats for children and of course intemperance in drinking alcohol for adults. But it's just one time of the year, right? We all need to celebrate once in a while and have a little freedom as long as we do not disturb others. Halloween is the glimpse of what remains of our ancient traditions during this time of the year. This is the season to honor our ancestors, to be in contact with them since the connection between this world and the next comes closer, and in mythological references this is the time of the year when the gap between worlds is opened and the spirits might come easily into our world. Well, it doesn't matter the mythological references. I mean, they are cultural explanations, but what is important to retain here, beyond the myth and metaphors, is that once again this is the time when we are closely connected to the supernatural in a spiritual way. There is a good opportunity here, a possibility that we can achieve connectivity with the spirits and undergo a spiritual experience that might change us completely, often for the best. But it's not only about our connection with the spirits and the knowledge we might gain during that process. This is indeed the time of the year when that we also change our behaviors and moods, and our personalities have to adapt to a new reality. This is the time when darkness conquers the natural world and the light and warmth of the sun is gone, such as the flowers and the green meadows and everything that is beautiful in nature. There is a huge change in nature, a transfiguration and metamorphosis. The cycle of life comes to an end, or at least this is the beginning of that end. It gets colder, the leaves fall, the trees are naked and nature dies out in general. Wild creatures either hibernate or seldom come out. This is just part of nature that we must accept. The same way we must accept ourselves and our own changes. Our moods darken, there is a sense of melancholy and sadness. Death is in the air, that's what it is. But death is a part of nature, and with death also comes life. Nature is giving the possibility of a new life to be created. So you too must give yourself that opportunity. This is the perfect time to make your inner spiritual journey and find yourself and understand your place in this world. Darkness can be a friend when you spend more time indoors, getting to know what really makes you happy. The trick is not knowing what defines us during happy times, but to understand who we truly are and what we truly want in the most desperate moments. We all have shadows in ourselves that we tend to hide. The wounds will never fully heal if we deny them. This time of the year is to be in contact with our ancestors, and that also means being in contact with your past. Understand it, it helped shape who you are today, and you must know how to let go of the past just as you must let go of those you loved, or make a new approach with what really made you happy and with the things and people that you are certain that there is a chance to rekindle the light that now seems so dim and faint. Halloween, Samhain, All Saints' Day, whatever you want to call it, this is the time to embrace the other side of nature and your own other side. You can't live apart from one side and try to run your life with the other. You can't break your heart in half and throw it away and live with the other. That will keep you out of balance. It keeps you away from your own essence and out of touch with the other aspects of your own desires and wishes. Self-awareness is what will actually help you to live life and not just survive in it. This is the period in your life to find a rebalance and a restoration of your own being. I wish you all happy holidays and that you might find balance in life and within yourselves. I hope you have enjoyed this video, and thank you for today.